Ambassador Sarah Chun stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, her human form dwarfed by the massive crystalline structures that housed representatives from 1,000 different worlds. The alien delegates whispered among themselves, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, hums, and telepathic waves that filled the vast chamber. She had arrived on the peaceful colony of New Eden just 3 days ago, expecting to negotiate a minor trade dispute. Instead, she found herself standing in the smoking ruins of what had been humanity's most successful off-world settlement. 20 million humans had called New Eden home. Now, there were none. The Korthax Empire's warships still hung in the sky like metallic predators, their hull markings proudly displaying the symbols of their recent conquest. They had not even attempted to hide their actions. The genocide had been swift, brutal, and completely unprovoked. Sarah's fingers traced the data pad in her hand, containing the final transmissions from New Eden. Children crying for their parents. Scientists desperately trying to send their research data back to Earth before the orbital bombardments reached them. Military personnel fighting to the last breath to buy time for civilian transports that would never make it off the ground. The Galactic Council had rules about warfare, conventions that were supposed to protect civilian populations, treaties that humanity had signed in good faith when they joined the galactic community 50 years ago. But those rules meant nothing when the enforcing body simply chose to look the other way. Ambassador Chun, the synthetic voice of the council chairman, echoed through the chamber. The Ethereum's gaseous form swirled in its containment field, colors shifting to indicate formal address. You have requested an emergency session. State your purpose. Sarah walked to the center of the chamber, her boots clicking against the polished floor. Every eye, sensor, and perception organ in the room focused on her small form. She activated her translator and spoke clearly. 3 days ago, the Korthax Empire committed genocide against the human colony of New Eden. 20 million civilians were murdered without warning, without provocation, and without mercy. Her voice carried no emotion, just cold, hard facts. I am here to demand justice under Article 7 of the Galactic Charter. A ripple of amusement passed through the assembled delegates. The Korthax ambassador, a creature resembling a massive armored centipede, raised itself to its full height. The humans were expanding too aggressively into disputed territory. We merely defended our interests. Disputed territory? Sarah's voice remained level. New Eden was recognized by this very council as sovereign human space 30 years ago. Your own government signed the treaty. The Korthax delegates' mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. Treaties change. Power dynamics shift. The weak are consumed by the strong. This is the way of the galaxy, little human. Your species should learn its place. Sarah felt the rage building inside her, but she kept it locked away. Not yet. She turned to address the council chairman. I invoke humanity's right to seek redress for this unprovoked act of war. The chairman's colors shifted to what Sarah recognized as diplomatic dismissal. The council sees no evidence of wrongdoing. The Korthax were within their rights to secure their borders. Perhaps humanity should focus on defending its remaining colonies rather than making accusations. The assembly erupted in laughter. Actual laughter from those species capable of it. Others showed their amusement in different ways, flashing lights, secreting pheromones, generating harmonic frequencies. They were all mocking her, mocking humanity's pain. Sarah stood perfectly still, watching them all. The Vorthan delegates with their chittering sounds. The melody with their crystalline bodies chiming in harmony. The Zephyrians floating in their anti-gravity fields, their tentacles writhing in mirth. Every single one of them complicit in their silence. She memorized every face, every form, every species represented in the chamber. Her neural implant recorded everything, transmitting it all back to Earth in real time. Humanity's leadership was watching through her eyes, seeing what she saw, feeling what she felt. I see, Sarah said quietly, and somehow her soft voice cut through all the noise. The laughter died away as delegates noticed something in her stance, something in the way she held herself. 20 million human lives mean nothing to this council. The chairman's form swirled faster, colors shifting to authoritative gold. Ambassador Chun, you are out of order. The matter is closed. Return to your embassy and inform your government that the Galactic Council has spoken. Sarah nodded slowly. Yes, the council has spoken. Very clearly. She turned to leave, then paused at the chamber's exit. Looking back over her shoulder, she spoke words that would echo through history. Humanity accepts your message. We understand perfectly what this galaxy thinks of us, and we will respond accordingly. The door sealed behind her with a soft hiss. In the chamber, some of the older delegates felt a chill run through their various physiologies. The humans were known for their adaptability, their stubbornness, their strange pack-bonding behaviors that extended even to other species. But they were also known for something else, something that most of the galaxy had forgotten in the 50 years of peaceful coexistence. Humans had evolved on a death world. They had clawed their way to the top of their food chain through violence, cunning, and an absolutely ruthless survival instinct. They had split the atom when most species were still learning to forge metal. They had reached space on pillars of controlled explosions when others waited centuries for anti-gravity technology. And now 20 million of them were dead, and their killers were laughing. The Korthax ambassador turned to his aide, mandibles clicking in satisfaction. Prepare a message to the Empire. Tell them the humans have been put in their place. Their other colonies will fall within the cycle. But in her ship racing back to Earth, Sarah Chun was preparing a very different message. Her fingers flew across her command console, activating quantum communicators that reached across the vast distances of space instantaneously. The message was short, encoded in humanity's oldest military cipher, and broadcast to every human world, station, and ship in the galaxy. Eden has fallen. 20 million confirmed dead. Council complicit. Diplomatique solutions exhausted. Recommend Protocol Omega. Within hours, the response came back from Earth, signed by every member of humanity's governing council, military leadership, and even the civilian population through emergency referendum. It was a single word that would change the course of galactic history. Approved. Sarah leaned back in her pilot's chair, finally, allowing herself to feel the full weight of what had happened. Tears ran down her cheeks as she thought of New Eden's children, their laughter silenced forever. She thought of the families torn apart, the dreams extinguished, the futures stolen. You wanted to see humanity's place in this galaxy, she whispered to the stars. Now you will. The ship's military-grade engines engaged, pushing her toward Earth at speeds that should have been impossible for a diplomatic vessel. But then, again, Sarah Chun was no longer just a diplomat. As of this moment, she was something far more dangerous. She was a human who had nothing left to lose. And the galaxy was about to learn why Earth's children had named their home planet after an ancient goddess of war. The transformation of Earth began within hours of Sarah Chun's message. Across the planet, citizens received the emergency broadcast on every device, every screen, every neural interface. The images from New Eden played in stark, unfiltered detail. The galaxy wanted humanity to know its place, and now every human understood exactly where they stood. In the massive underground bunkers beneath Geneva, humanity's military leadership gathered around a holographic display of the galaxy. General Marcus Rodriguez, a veteran of the Colonial Defense Force, studied the three-dimensional map with calculating eyes. Red dots marked Korthax territory and their allied species. Blue dots showed human colonies and outposts. The disparity was sobering. They outnumber us 50-1, Admiral Yuki Tanaka observed, her fingers manipulating the display to show fleet positions. Their technology is more advanced in many areas. By all conventional metrics, this is suicide. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Since when has humanity ever given a damn about conventional metrics? We killed megafauna with sharp sticks. We survived ice ages and supervolcanic eruptions. We turned splitting atoms into both power and weapons before we even had computers. He turned to face the assembled leaders. They think we're weak because we chose peace. They forgot that we're the species that weaponized everything we've ever discovered. Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of Humanity's Strategic Development Division, pulled up another display. We've been preparing for this possibility since first contact. Every trade deal, every technological exchange, every diplomatic mission. We've been learning, adapting, improving. Did you know that Korthak's shield technology has a fatal flaw? Their frequency modulation follows a predictable pattern. We can exploit it. The room filled with similar revelations. For 50 years, humanity had played the role of peaceful newcomers, eager to learn from their galactic neighbors. And learn they had. Every weakness, every blind spot, every assumption the elder races made about warfare and conflict, humanity had cataloged it all. On Mars, the Red Planet's military shipyards roared to life. For decades, these facilities had built mining vessels and transport ships, maintaining only a modest defense fleet as per Galactic Council regulations. But the infrastructure had always been capable of so much more. Within days, the first true warships humanity had built in space began taking shape. They were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Where alien ships were beautiful, crystalline works of art designed for efficiency and aesthetics, human warships were brutal instruments of destruction. Angular, armored behemoths bristling with weapons that violated several galactic conventions on civilized warfare. Captain Diana Foster stood on the bridge of the UNS Vengeance, the first battleship to roll off the Martian production lines. Her crew was entirely human, men and women who had lost family on New Eden, who understood that this was no longer about diplomacy or coexistence. Weapons check complete, Captain, her tactical officer reported. Kinetic rail, guns operational. Nuclear torpedoes armed. And the special packages are secure in the hold. The special packages. Weapons so horrific that humanity had banned them on Earth centuries ago. But this wasn't Earth, and the enemy had shown no mercy to human children. Bioweapons designed to target specific alien physiologies. Nanoswarms that could devour ship hulls in seconds. Quantum bombs that could destabilize stars. The Galactic Council had rules about warfare. Humanity had studied those rules carefully, and then they had designed weapons specifically to break every single one of them. In the research stations orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Chunwei made a breakthrough that would have won him a Nobel Prize in peacetime. Instead, it would win humanity a war. He had cracked the mathematical formula behind faster-than-light communication, allowing for instantaneous coordination across any distance. More importantly, he had figured out how to weaponize it. Quantum entanglement bombs, he explained to the military liaisons. Deploy them in enemy territory, and we can detonate them from Earth. No warning, no defense, no escape. The Korthaks think their homeworld is safe behind their fleet. They're wrong. Meanwhile, on the colony world of Haven, something extraordinary was happening. Governor Maria Santos watched as her peaceful farming community transformed overnight into a military staging ground. But it wasn't just soldiers arriving. Families came too, refugees from other human colonies who understood what was coming. We're not evacuating, she announced to the colony council. We're fortifying. Every man, woman, and child old enough to hold a weapon will be trained. Every building becomes a bunker. Every street becomes a killing field. If the Korthaks want Haven, they'll pay for every inch in blood. The transformation wasn't limited to military preparations. Earth's cultural response was equally dramatic. Artists painted murals of New Eden's children on every available surface. Musicians composed symphonies of rage and remembrance. Writers documented every name, every face, every life lost in the massacre. Humanity would not forget. Humanity would not forgive. In the diplomatic quarters on Centauri Station, alien observers watched humanity's transformation with growing alarm. The Melody Ambassador, her crystalline form resonating with distress, sent urgent communications back to her homeworld. The humans are not responding as predicted. There are no peace protests, no factional divisions, no voices calling for negotiation. They have become unified, completely, terrifyingly unified. Their entire species now moves with singular purpose. The Vorthan intelligence analyst studying human communications was even more disturbed. They're not just preparing for war against the Korthax. They're preparing for war against everyone who stood by and watched. They've tagged every species that laughed in the council chambers as complicit. Their attack plans include contingencies for fighting the entire Galactic Council. But perhaps the most chilling development came from humanity's scientific community. Professor Kenji Nakamura, Earth's leading expert on xenobiology, made an announcement that sent shockwaves through human space. We've completed our analysis of the biological samples collected over 50 years of peaceful exchange. We now have complete genetic profiles of every major species in the galaxy. We know their weaknesses, their pressure points, their evolutionary blind spots. We can create targeted bioweapons that will affect only specific species while leaving humans unharmed. The moral implications were staggering. The scientific community had spent decades advocating for the ethical use of such knowledge. But New Eden had changed everything. Ethics were a luxury humanity could no longer afford. Sarah Chun arrived on Earth to a hero's welcome. Crowds gathered wherever she went, not cheering but standing in silent solidarity. She had become the face of humanity's loss and their determination for justice. In her private moments, she struggled with what she had set in motion. But then she would remember the children's voices in those final transmissions, and her resolve would harden. Standing before the United Earth Assembly, she delivered a speech that would be remembered for generations. They took our children. They took our dreams of peaceful coexistence. They took our faith in galactic civilization. But they made one crucial mistake. They left us alive. They left us angry. And they left us with nothing to lose. She paused, looking directly into the cameras broadcasting to every human in the galaxy. We offered them our friendship, and they gave us genocide. We sought justice, and they gave us mockery. Now we will give them what they have taught us is the only language this galaxy understands. Overwhelming, decisive, merciless force. The assembly erupted in unanimous approval. The vote for total war passed without a single dissension. Humanity's democratic ideals remained intact, but they had democratically chosen vengeance. In deep space, the first human war fleets began to move. They didn't head immediately for Korthax space. Instead, they took positions at strategic points throughout human territory. Defense had to come first, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. The Korthax Empire, still drunk on their easy victory at New Eden, began to notice unusual activity in human space. Their intelligence networks reported massive military buildups, but the Korthax leadership dismissed the concerns. What could one small species do against an empire that had stood for millennia? They would soon find out. Admiral Tanaka stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship, the UNS Terra's Wrath. Around her, a fleet of vessels that should not have been possible to build so quickly hung in the void. But human engineering had always thrived under pressure, and there was no greater pressure than extinction. All ships report ready, Admiral, her communications officer announced. Operation Reaper is prepared to commence on your order. Tanaka looked at the tactical display showing Korthax border defenses. They were formidable by galactic standards, but they had been designed to fight civilized wars with civilized enemies. Humanity was no longer feeling civilized. Send a message to all ships, she commanded. Remember New Eden. No merci. No josetastion. No survivors. The fleet acknowledged with a single voice. Thousands of ships, millions of humans, all united in terrible purpose. The galaxy had awakened something ancient in humanity, something that centuries of civilization had only barely contained. The predator was off its leash, and it was hungry for justice written in alien blood. The first strike came without warning. The Korthax border station Zelenka had monitored the edge of their territory for 300 years, its sensors reaching deep into space to detect any threat. The station commander, Subprelate Vextor, was reviewing routine reports when every alarm on the station suddenly screamed to life. Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace. His sensor operator's mandibles clicked frantically. Configuration unknown. They're not broadcasting identification codes. Vextor rushed to the tactical display, his 6 legs carrying him swiftly across the command deck. What he saw defied comprehension. Ships were emerging from hyperspace in impossible formations, at impossible speeds, using jump coordinates that should have torn them apart. Human ships. How many, he demanded. Still counting? 50, 100. Prelate. Over 300 vessels, and more still emerging. The human fleet hung in space like a swarm of angular predators. Where Korthak's ships were elegant curves and flowing lines, these vessels were all harsh edges and armor plating. Weapons ports bristled from every surface. They looked less like ships and more like flying fortresses designed by someone who considered aesthetics a weakness. Vextor had just enough time to order his station's shields raised before the humans opened fire. But the shields, designed to stop plasma bursts and laser arrays, were useless against what came next. Kinetic projectiles, accelerated to near light speed, punched through the barriers like tissue paper. Nuclear explosions followed, their electromagnetic pulses frying systems that had never been hardened against such primitive but effective weapons. The station died in minutes. 300 years of service ended in nuclear fire and shredded metal. But Vextor managed one final transmission to Korthax Prime. The humans have come. They fight without honor. They fight to exterminate. Admiral Tanaka watched the station's destruction with cold satisfaction. Around her bridge, her crew worked with mechanical precision. No cheers, no celebración. This was not glorious. This was necessary. Phase 1 complete, her tactical officer reported. All border defenses eliminated. No survivors detected. Good. Signal the second wave. Begin deployment of the Cedars. From the cargo bays of specialized ships, small pods launched by the thousands. Each one contained a self-replicating mining drone, but these were not designed to extract resources. They were designed to deny them. The pods scattered across the system, landing on asteroids, moons, and planetary bodies. Within hours, they would begin converting all available matter into more drones, stripping entire systems of resources the Korthax war machine needed. On Korthax Prime, the High Command received the news of Zelenka Station's destruction with disbelief. The humans had not just attacked. They had annihilated a border position that had stood since before humanity discovered fire. Mobilize the 3rd and 5th Battle Fleets, Supreme Commander Kexval ordered. The humans want to play at war? We'll show them how a real military responds. Target their colony at Haven. Let them taste their own medicine. The Korthax fleets, each numbering over 1,000 ships, began their journey toward human space. They were confident, experienced, and completely unprepared for what awaited them. Captain Diana Foster, aboard the Vengeance, received the intelligence update with grim satisfaction. They're taking the bait. 2 full battle fleets heading for Haven, just as predicted. Her tactical team had spent weeks analyzing Korthak's military doctrine. The aliens were predictable, fighting wars according to traditions and rules established over millennia. They would respond to an attack with an overwhelming counterattack on what they perceived as a weak target. Haven looked vulnerable, a farming colony with minimal defenses. They couldn't see the 100 human warships hiding in the system's gas giant, powered down and waiting. They couldn't detect the millions of mines seeded throughout the approach vectors. They had no idea that Haven's civilian population had spent months turning their world into a fortress that would make the ancient castles of Earth look welcoming. On Haven itself, Governor Santos stood in the Colonial Command Center, now a hardened bunker 50 meters underground. Her peaceful farmers had become soldiers. Her children had become ammunition runners. Her elderly had become intelligence gatherers. The entire colony was a weapon waiting to be fired. Korthak's fleets detected at the edge of the system, her defense coordinator reported. They're following standard invasion protocol. They'll be in range of the mines in 6 hours. All units to positions, Santos commanded. Remember your training. Remember New Eden. Today, we teach the galaxy that human worlds are not easy prey. Meanwhile, in deep space, another human fleet executed a maneuver that should have been impossible. Using Dr. Way's breakthrough in quantum mechanics, they jumped directly into the heart of Korthak's industrial space, bypassing centuries of defensive lines in an instant. Commander Rachel O'Brien surveyed the manufacturing world below her fleet. Vox Prime was the cornerstone of Korthak's weapons production, its automated factories churning out warships for their empire. The planet's population was mostly automated systems and a few million overseers. "Deploy the gray goo," she ordered. Her weapons officer hesitated for just a moment. The gray goo, self-replicating nanobots programmed to consume any technology they encountered, was perhaps humanity's most terrifying creation. Once released, they would devour the entire planet's infrastructure, leaving nothing but dust. The Galactic Council had banned such weapons for good reason. But the hesitation lasted only a moment. Grey goo deployed, Commander. Estimated time to total consumption, 17 hours. On the planet below, the first signs of trouble appeared as random equipment failures. Then, entire factories went dark. The Korthak's overseers watched in horror as their machines began dissolving before their eyes, the nanobots spreading exponentially. Evacuation orders came too late. The spaceports were consumed before ships could launch. Within hours, Vox Prime was dying. Within days, it would be a lifeless ball of rock, its industrial might reduced to component atoms. The message was clear. Humanity would not just defeat the Korthak's military. They would erase the Korthak's ability to ever threaten anyone again. Back at Haven, the Korthak's fleets had arrived. Supreme Commander Kexval personally led the assault, eager to show these upstart humans the price of defying the natural order. His tactical display showed a barely defended colony, exactly what he expected from a species that had chosen farming over militarization. "Begin orbital bombardment," he ordered. "Pattern Sigma. Leave no structure standing." His ships moved into position, weapons charging. They never saw the mines until it was too late. Thousands of small objects, no bigger than a human fist, suddenly activated. Each one contained a miniature nuclear device wrapped in a shell of compressed metals. The explosions were small by stellar standards, but there were so many of them. The Korthak's fleet's shields held against the first wave. They flickered against the second. By the third wave, gaps began to appear, and that's when the hidden human fleet struck. Emerging from a gas giant's radiation shadow, 100 human warships opened fire simultaneously. Railguns launched projectiles at velocities that turned them into relativistic weapons. Missile swarms numbered in the tens of thousands. And then came the weapons the Korthaks had no frame of reference for. Gravity bombs that created miniature black holes, tearing ships apart at the molecular level. Dimensional shears that cut through hull plating by briefly shifting portions of a ship into alternate dimensions. Bioweapons specifically tailored to Korthak's physiology, turning their own atmosphere against them. Supreme Commander Kexval watched his proud fleet die in minutes. Ships that had served the Empire for centuries were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. His own flagship shuddered under impacts that bypassed shields entirely. Impossible. He clicked, his compound eyes struggling to process the destruction. They're using weapons that shouldn't exist, that can't exist under the laws of physics. His science officer's response chilled him to his core. They do exist, Supreme Commander. The humans simply never told anyone they discovered new laws. As his bridge exploded around him, Kexval's last thought was a revelation that came far too late. The humans hadn't spent 50 years learning to be civilized. They'd spent 50 years learning how the galaxy fought, so they could fight differently. On Haven's surface, the colonists watched the sky light up with the deaths of enemy ships. Some cheered. Most simply stood in silence, understanding that each explosion meant thousands of lives ending. They took no joy in it, but they took satisfaction in the knowledge that their children would sleep safely tonight. Governor Santos received the casualty report with mixed emotions. Our losses: 17 ships destroyed, 43 damaged. Estimated 3,000 personnel killed in action. Her aide paused. The Korthak's losses are total. Both fleets eliminated. No survivors detected. 3,000 human lives for 2 entire enemy fleets. By any military standard, It was an overwhelming victory. By human standards, it was 3,000 families who would grieve, 3,000 names added to the growing list of those who had paid the price for New Eden. Send the message to Earth, Santos commanded. Haven stands. The enemy has learned that human worlds will not fall easily. Request instructions for next phase. The response came within hours, transmitted through quantum entanglement directly from Earth's War Council. It was simple and direct. Well done. Proceed to Phase 3. Target, Corthax Prime. Across human space, similar stories played out. Colony worlds thought to be easy targets revealed themselves as fortresses. Human fleets appeared where they shouldn't be able to exist, using technologies that violated galactic understanding of physics. Weapons that had been banned for millennia were deployed without hesitation. The galaxy watched in growing horror as humanity systematically dismantled one of its oldest and most powerful empires. The Corthax, who had stood for 10,000 years, were being broken in weeks. And through it all, Sarah Chen's words echoed in the minds of every human warrior. They wanted to see humanity's place in this galaxy. Now they will. The massacre at New Eden had triggered something the galaxy had never seen before. Not just a war, but a species-wide commitment to absolute victory. Every human, from Earth to the furthest colony, had become part of a war machine dedicated to a single purpose. The Corthax had killed 20 million humans and laughed. Now, the Corthax were dying, and no one was laughing anymore. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session as reports flooded in from across Corthax space. The Grand Assembly Hall, which had echoed with laughter at humanity's expense just weeks ago, now buzzed with fear and confusion. The same delegates who had mocked Sarah Chen's plea for justice now whispered anxiously among themselves. Chairman Etherian's gaseous form swirled in agitated patterns as he called for order. The situation in Corthax space requires immediate attention. Ambassador Vexnull, report on your empire's status. The Corthax ambassador's usual proud posture was gone. His armored segments drooped, and his translator struggled to convey the clicking despair in his native speech. 17 systems have gone dark. Our third and fifth fleets are confirmed destroyed. Vox Prime is gone. The entire planet consumed by human weapons. A collective shudder ran through the assembly. Vox Prime had been an industrial powerhouse for longer than many civilizations had existed. The Melody Ambassador's crystalline form rang with discordant notes. Surely these reports are exaggerated. No single species could. Her words were cut short as new data flooded the Council's displays. Real-time footage from a Corthax border world showed human drop pods raining from the sky. Each pod split open to release not soldiers, but clouds of microscopic machines that began converting everything they touched into more machines. Buildings, vehicles, even the ground itself was consumed and transformed. Nanoplague, whispered the Vorthan representative, his chitinous body trembling. The humans have deployed nanoplague. Such weapons have been banned for 3 millennia. The humans recognized no bans. Sarah Chen's voice cut through the chamber. She stood at the entrance, having arrived unannounced. But now she wore not the flowing robes of a diplomat, but the stark black uniform of Earth's military. You showed us that galactic law means nothing when the strong decide to consume the weak. We have simply accepted your lesson. The chairman's form pulsed with indignation. Ambassador Chun, you are not invited to this session. Your species stands accused of war crimes. War crimes. Sarah's laugh was cold and sharp. Was it a war crime when the Corthax slaughtered 20 million civilians? When this council laughed at their deaths? You defined the rules of engagement when you chose mockery over justice. Now you complain that we play by those rules. She walked to the center of the chamber, and several delegates instinctively moved away from her. The small, fragile humans suddenly seemed far more dangerous than the largest predator species present. But I'm not here to debate ethics with those who have none, she continued. I am here to deliver humanity's terms. The Zephyrian delegate's tentacles writhed in outrage. Terms? Your species attacks a sovereign empire, and dare speak of terms? The combined fleets of the Galactic Council will We'll die, Sarah interrupted. Just as the Korthax fleets died. Did you think we spent 50 years among you learning nothing? We know your shield frequencies, your weapon capabilities, your tactical doctrines. We know which species require methane atmospheres, and which will die if exposed to simple Earth bacteria. We know everything we need to know to fight all of you. She activated a holographic display, showing the current state of the galaxy. Human-controlled space had expanded dramatically, with red zones indicating contested or conquered Korthax territory. More importantly, she continued, we know your dependencies. The Melody require rare crystals found only in 3 systems, 2 of which now have human fleets in position to blockade. The Vorthan's breeding cycles depend on returning to their homeworld every solar rotation, a journey that requires passing through what is now human-controlled space. The Zephyrians' anti-gravity technology relies on elements we can deny them. Each species, she named, reacted with visible distress. The humans had not just prepared for war. They had prepared for war against everyone. You're insane, the Korthax ambassador clicked desperately. You cannot fight the entire galaxy. Sarah's expression never changed. We don't want to fight the entire galaxy. We want justice for New Eden. The Korthax Empire will surrender unconditionally within 1 standard rotation, or we will continue until there is no Korthax Empire. The rest of you will return to your territories and stay there. Any species that aids the Korthax or attacks human holdings will share their fate. This is madness. The chairman's form blazed with colors of authority. The Galactic Council will not be threatened by. His words ended as every display in the chamber suddenly showed the same image. Earth's moon transformed into the largest weapons platform in known space. Mass drivers capable of launching asteroids at faster-than-light speeds. Arrays of quantum torpedoes that could destabilize stars. And at the center, a massive construction that defied identification. The Luna Array, Sarah explained calmly. A gravitational wave generator capable of creating targeted singularities anywhere in the galaxy. We can collapse a star from 30,000 light-years away. Would you like a demonstration? Silence fell across the chamber. The implications were staggering. If the humans truly had such a weapon, no world was safe. No fleet could protect against a black hole appearing in the heart of their system. The Etherian delegate, one of the oldest species present, finally spoke. You would commit genocide to avenge genocide? How does that make you better than a Korthax? Sarah's eyes hardened. We offered peace. We offered friendship. We followed your rules, accepted your judgments, trusted your justice. You taught us that these things are meaningless, that only power matters. So we became powerful. She turned to address the entire assembly. But we are still human. We still prefer peace to war, life to death. Surrender the Korthax leadership for trial. Make reparations to the families of New Eden. Accept humanity as an equal member of this council with full voting rights and veto power. Do this, and the war ends today. And if we refuse, the chairman asked, though his colors suggested he already knew the answer. Then we will do what humans have always done when faced with extinction, Sarah replied. We will survive, no matter the cost. No matter who stands in our way. On Korthax Prime, panic had replaced arrogance in the halls of power. High Commandant Kextor, supreme leader of the Empire, stood before tactical displays showing the systematic destruction of his military. Human fleets appeared and disappeared at will, striking critical targets with surgical precision before vanishing into hyperspace. How? He demanded of his science council. How do they move so quickly? How do their weapons bypass our defenses? The lead scientist segments writhed in distress. They've been studying us for 50 years, Commandant. Every technological exchange, every diplomatic meeting, every trade negotiation, they were learning. They found weaknesses we didn't know existed. A communication alert interrupted their discussion. The display showed Admiral Tanaka's face, transmitted from her flagship, now orbiting just outside Korthax Prime's defense perimeter. High Commandant, she began without preamble. I'm Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the United Earth Forces. Your fleets are broken. Your industrial base is crippled. Your empire is dying. I am here to offer you one chance to save your species from extinction. Kextor's mandibles clicked in defiance. The Korthax do not surrender to inferior species. Inferior. Tanaka's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made even the video transmission feel dangerous. Your empire murdered 20 million civilians and called it pest control. Now your military lies in ruins and your world's burned. Tell me, Commandant, which of us seems inferior now? She continued before he could respond. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Transfer all military command codes to my fleet. Order your remaining forces to stand down. Your leadership will be taken to Earth to stand trial for genocide. Your empire will pay reparations to the families of New Eden. In return, your species will survive. And if we refuse? Kextor asked, though the defiance in his voice was fading. Then, in 1 hour, I will deploy humanity's final option. She gestured to something off-screen, a bioweapon designed specifically for Korthax physiology. It will spread through your atmosphere within days, your entire empire within weeks. Your species will cease to exist, and the galaxy will remember you only as a cautionary tale about the price of underestimating humanity. The transmission ended, leaving Korthax leadership in stunned silence. They had ruled for 10,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of species. They had never imagined it could end like this. In the human fleet, preparations for the final assault continued. Captain Foster stood ready with her bioweapon deployment systems armed. Ground forces prepared for planetary invasion. The massive dreadnoughts charged their primary weapons for orbital bombardment. But on every human ship, in every human heart, there was hope that it wouldn't be necessary. They had proven their point. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would not be victims. Now they waited to see if their enemies had learned the lesson. The countdown continued. 50 minutes. 40. 30. On Earth, billions watched the feeds from the fleet. Parents held their children, remembering those lost on New Eden. Veterans of old Earth wars recognized the terrible necessity of what their species had done. None celebrated. All understood. 20 minutes. 10. 5. And then, with barely a minute remaining, the surrender came through. High Commandant Kextor's image appeared on every human screen, his proud form bowed in defeat. The Korthax Empire yields to the terms of humanity. We surrender unconditionally. May the galaxy forgive us for what we started. May humanity forgive itself for what it had to do to end it. Admiral Tanaka received the command codes and confirmed their authenticity. Within moments, the remaining Korthax fleets powered down their weapons. The war that had threatened to consume the galaxy was over. But its effects would ripple through space for generations. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Sarah Chun received the news with no visible emotion. She turned to the assembled delegates, many of whom seemed to be seeing her and humanity clearly for the first time. The Korthax have surrendered. Humanity's terms will be met. The war is over. She paused, looking at each delegate in turn. Let this be a lesson to all. We came to you as friends and were treated as prey. We sought justice and found mockery. But when pushed to the edge, we showed you what our species is capable of. Remember that. She moved toward the exit, then stopped one final time. Humanity returns now to rebuilding, to mourning our dead, to trying to find peace again. We hope to never again unleash what New Eden awakened in us. But we will not forget, and we will never again be anyone's victims. As she left, the chamber remained silent. The galaxy had learned a terrible truth. Humans were not the weak newcomers they had seemed. They were not prey to be consumed at will. They were the species that had evolved on a death world. They were the children of war and catastrophe. They were the survivors who had turned every challenge into a weapon, every defeat into a lesson, every tragedy into strength. And 20 million of their children had been murdered. The galaxy would never make that mistake again. 5 years had passed since the Korthax surrender. The Grand Courtroom on Earth housed representatives from across the galaxy, all watching as the final war crimes tribunal reached its conclusion. High Commandant Kextor stood in the dock, his once proud form diminished but not broken. Around him, the surviving Korthax leadership awaited judgment for the massacre at New Eden. Chief Justice Patricia Williams, representing humanity's judicial system, spoke with measured authority. The tribunal has reviewed all evidence. The genocide at New Eden was deliberate, unprovoked, and violated every principle of civilized warfare. The defendants are found guilty on all counts. Murmurs rippled through the alien observers. Many had expected humanity to simply execute the Korthax leaders, to answer genocide with genocide. What came next surprised them. However, Williams continued, humanity has chosen to demonstrate something this galaxy seems to have forgotten. Justice is not vengeance. The defendants will serve life sentences, not in death, but in service. They will spend their remaining years working to rebuild what they destroyed, to support the families they orphaned, to ensure such atrocities never happen again. Sarah Chun, now Earth Senior Ambassador to the reconstructed Galactic Council, watched from the gallery. The years had aged her, streaks of gray in her hair marking the weight of what she had helped set in motion. But her eyes remained sharp as she observed the galaxy's reaction to humanity's mercy. In the rebuilt colony of New Eden II, a memorial stood where the original settlement had been. 20 million names were carved into walls of black marble that seemed to stretch forever. Governor Maria Santos, relocated from Haven, walked among the monuments with a group of mixed-species delegates. Every name represents a life cut short, a future stolen, she explained to the melody representative beside her. But also a reminder of what happens when civilization fails, when we allow might to make right. The melody's crystalline form chimed softly, resonating with the sorrow that permeated the memorial. Your species showed restraint. After what you demonstrated you were capable of, many expected humanity to conquer the galaxy. Santos milid sadly. We could have. Our military planners had strategies to subjugate every major species within a decade. But what would that have made us? Just another empire built on graves. New Eden's children deserve better than to be avenged by becoming what killed them. Across human space, the transformation that had begun in war continued in peace. The technologies developed for destruction were repurposed for creation. The gravitational wave generators that could collapse stars now powered installations that could stabilize dying systems. The nanobots designed to devour enemy infrastructure were redesigned to terraform dead worlds, creating new homes for species whose planets were dying. Admiral Tanaka, now retired, taught at the Galactic Military Academy, an institution created in the war's aftermath to ensure all species understood each other's capabilities and, more importantly, their motivations. Her classroom included students from dozens of species, all learning the hard lessons humanity had paid so dearly to teach. The Korthax War wasn't just a military conflict, she explained to her mixed-species class. It was a fundamental breakdown of the assumptions that govern galactic civilization. The strong had grown complacent in their strength. The established powers had forgotten that power is not static. It can be created, earned, taken. A young Vorthan raised a chitinous appendage. Admiral, many say humanity held back, that you could have deployed even worse weapons. Is this true? Tanaka's expression grew distant. What we showed was sufficient. What we kept hidden? Let's hope the galaxy never gives us reason to reveal it. In the diplomatic quarters of the new Galactic Council station, rebuilt with human engineering and alien aesthetics working in harmony, Sarah Chin met with the current chairman, a Zephyrian whose species had learned to respect humanity's position. The integration continues smoothly, the chairman reported, tentacles weaving complex patterns of satisfaction. Human colonies are thriving. Trade has resumed at levels higher than before the war. Some species even seek human protection for their own settlements. Sarah nodded, reviewing the reports on her neural interface. Protection we provide freely, as long as they understand it comes with expectations. No slavity, no yenisaiv, no preying on the weak. Break these rules, and face the consequences, the chairman finished. The galaxy understands, Ambassador. The lesson of New Eden was well learned. But not all scars had healed. In the former Korthax Empire, now reorganized as the Korthax Republic under joint species supervision, the population struggled with their fall from dominance. Where once they had been feared conquerors, Now they were a cautionary tale, their empire's millennia of achievement overshadowed by one act of unconscionable brutality. Commander Rachel O'Brien, now serving as military liaison to the Republic, worked daily with Korthak security forces to rebuild their society. It was challenging work, requiring her to suppress her own memories of New Eden, her own desire for continued vengeance. "You hate us," Subcommander Vexlaw observed during one of their planning sessions. "Yet you help us rebuild." Why? O'Brien considered her answer carefully. "Because hatred is exhaustion. Because my daughter would be 7 now if she hadn't been on New Eden. Because the best way to honor the dead is to ensure their deaths lead to something better, not just more death." The Korthak's officers' segments shifted in what she had learned was contemplation. "Your species perplexes us. You have the power to destroy, yet choose to create. You have reasons for vengeance, yet offer mercy. How?" "Because," O'Brien said quietly, "we've seen what we become when pushed to the edge. We've felt the terrible satisfaction of absolute victory. And we've decided that's not who we want to be. But, make no mistake, we remember who we can become if necessary." The transformation of the galaxy continued in ways large and small. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists, sharing technologies that had been weapons, turning them into tools. The quantum communication system that had coordinated humanity's war effort now connected the galaxy in an instantaneous network of shared knowledge. Dr. Chun Wei, whose breakthrough had enabled humanity's strategic superiority, now headed the Galactic Scientific Exchange. In his laboratories, humans and aliens worked side by side, pushing the boundaries of physics, biology, and understanding itself. "The war taught us something crucial," he explained to a gathering of scientists. "We had assumed the elder races knew more than us about everything. But they had grown comfortable, stopped pushing boundaries. Humans, in our desperation, found new solutions because we had to. Now, working together, imagine what we can discover when we push boundaries by choice, not necessity." But perhaps the most profound change was in humanity itself. The species that had united in rage and grief had to learn how to unite in peace. The war factories of Mars were converted to shipyards building exploration vessels. The military academies that had trained soldiers now trained peacekeepers. The technologies of war became the tools of expansion and discovery. On Earth, in the offices of the United Human Government, President Chen Xing, no relation to Sarah, addressed the annual remembrance gathering. Leaders from across human space, and increasingly from alien worlds, gathered to mark the anniversary of New Eden. "We discovered something about ourselves in those dark days," he said, his voice carrying across the assembly. "We learned that when threatened, we could become something terrible. We could set aside our divisions, our moral qualms, our civilized restraints. We could become the monster that would devour any other monster." He paused, looking at the mixed gathering of humans and aliens. "But we also learned we could choose not to remain that monster. We could offer justice instead of vengeance. We could build instead of destroy. We could lead instead of conquer. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not our weapons or our technologies, but our choice to be better than our darkest impulses demand." In her apartment overlooking the memorial gardens of New Geneva, Sarah Chun sat with her granddaughter, born into a galaxy forever changed by her actions. The child, bearing genetic markers from 3 different human ethnic groups and enhanced with beneficial traits borrowed from allied species, represented humanity's future, diverse, adaptive, and integrated with the galaxy at large. "Grandma, why do the aliens seem scared of humans sometimes?" the child asked, having noticed the deference shown by visiting delegates. Sarah pulled the child close, considering how to explain. "Because once, when bad people hurt our family, we showed everyone how strong we could be when we're angry. And sometimes being feared for your strength is necessary to protect what you love. But they're not bad people now." "No, sweetheart. Most of them learned, just like we did, that being strong doesn't mean you have to be cruel. That having power means you have a responsibility to use it wisely." She kissed the child's forehead. "Remember that when you grow up, Humans are powerful, but our greatest power is choosing when not to use it. As the sun set over New Geneva, casting long shadows across monuments to the dead and buildings reaching toward the future, the galaxy continued its transformation. The massacre at New Eden had triggered something unprecedented. Not just a war, but a fundamental reimagining of how species could coexist. The Galactic Council now included provisions for protecting colonies and civilians that had teeth, human teeth. Trade agreements included clauses about ethical treatment that were enforced by human inspectors. Military academies taught human tactics alongside traditional doctrine, ensuring no species would again be caught unprepared for how creative, desperate humans could become. But more than structures and agreements, it was the knowledge that hung over every interaction. Humanity had shown what happened when 20 million of their children were murdered and their killers laughed. They had demonstrated capabilities that defied galactic understanding, revealed weapons that violated conventional physics, displayed a unity of purpose that turned an entire species into a singular war machine. And then they had chosen to stop. That choice, more than any weapon or victory, changed the galaxy forever. It said that humans were not just another conquering species rising to power through violence. They were something new, a species capable of terrible destruction who chose construction, capable of justified vengeance who chose justice, capable of galactic domination who chose cooperation. The ghost of New Eden would always haunt the stars. 20 million voices silenced would never speak again. But from their ashes had risen a new galactic order, one where the strong could no longer prey on the weak with impunity, where justice had meaning backed by force, where humanity stood as both protector and reminder. In the depths of space, human patrol fleets maintained their vigil, not as conquerors but as guardians. Their crews, many born after the war, carried the responsibility of their species' reputation. They were the inheritors of humanity's darkest hour and its greatest triumph, the moment when they proved they could become monsters to defeat monsters, and then choose to become something better. The galaxy had wanted to see humanity's place among the stars. Now it knew. Humans were the species you wanted as friends, needed as allies, and never, ever wanted as enemies. They were the proof that evolution on a death world didn't just create survivors. It created beings capable of reshaping the galaxy itself when given reason enough. And, in the end, 20 million reasons had been more than enough. The massacre at New Eden had triggered humanity's transformation from peaceful newcomers to galactic power. But it was what humanity did with that power, the choice to build rather than burn, to judge rather than slaughter, to lead rather than rule, that truly changed everything. In the memorial gardens of New Eden 2, as on every human world, children played under alien suns while their parents worked alongside beings their grandparents might have destroyed. They grew up knowing their species' capacity for both creation and destruction, understanding that strength meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. They were humanity's future, powerful, purposeful, and forever marked by the knowledge that when the galaxy had tested their species' resolve, humanity had answered with a voice that shook the stars themselves. Never again would human children burn while the galaxy laughed. Never again would justice be denied to those with the strength to demand it. And never again would humanity need to become the monster to defeat the monsters. The war was over. The peace, built on the ashes of 20 million dead, and the fear of what humanity could become, would endure. Because everyone now knew the truth. Humans were kind by choice, not by nature. And that choice could always be revoked.